Hello there, my name is Konstantin Baum. I'm a master of wine, a retailer and a consultant. And this is my channel where we are thirsty for knowledge and wine. This tagline is really awkward, but I still like it. This is Wine in 10, where I tell you everything you need to know about a region or a grape variety. In this episode, we are going to talk about one of the greatest white grape varieties in the world. Some might even say the greatest white grape variety in the world, Riesling.
That's good.
First of all, to get this out of the way, it is pronounced Riesling. Think of Reese Witherspoon rather than egg-fried rice. Riesling. The amazing thing about Riesling is that you're able to produce a huge diversity of styles at a very high level. You can make great dry Riesling and great sweet Riesling. You can make beautiful sparkling wines and great still wines. They are beautiful young, fresh Rieslings, but Riesling is also able to age for a long time. There are very few grape varieties in the wine world that are able to do that at a large scale. Chenin Blanc is pretty much the only one that really comes to mind. DNA tests revealed that the grape variety Gouais Blanc is actually a parent of Riesling. Gouais Blanc is one of the original Vitis vinifera grape varieties, and there are many different grape varieties that are children of Gouais Blanc. So that means that Riesling is actually related to grape varieties like Chardonnay, Gamay and Fourmint through Gouais Blanc. But Riesling is also used for breeding new grape varieties. Some of the more popular ones are, for example, Kerner and Scheurebe. The most widely planted grape variety that was used by crossing Riesling with another grape variety is Müller-Thurgau. Even though the names are similar, Riesling is not at all genetically related to Welschriesling and Riesling Italico. The grape variety probably originates from the Rhine Valley. The first historical evidence of Riesling production is from the Rheingau and the Mosel, and it is from the 15th century. But there are also still some really old Riesling bottles around. The City Hall of Bremen famously stores quite a few of those old bottles. The oldest one is from 1653, which is insane. The name Riesling might come from the German word reißen, which means to tear or to split, or it might come from the German word verrieseln, which means millerondage or shot berries. Now you might want to know what Riesling looks like in nature. I don't have any leaves here, but I have one of my favorite books. It's called Wine Grapes. It's by Jancis Robinson, and it is a very nerdy book, but it's just beautiful. So the Riesling leaves are actually quite small, and they have 3 to 5 lobes. The lobes are basically those little bits where the leaf opens up. The grapes are quite small, quite compact and cylindrical. And this is also one of the reasons why Noble Rot sets quite well on Riesling, but I'll talk about that more in a minute. When it comes to viticulture, Riesling is also quite interesting. Normally, most grape varieties really look for warmth or heat, and this grape variety really prefers the cooler pockets in the vineyards. The quality is generally the highest in areas that are a bit cooler, and that is also one of the reasons why Germany is so successful with this grape variety. Riesling is known as a cold-resistant grape variety, so the trunk is quite woody and strong, and the vines don't die as easily in very cold conditions. It is also a late bloomer, which is beneficial if you have spring frost. What is also quite interesting about Riesling is that it can produce really good qualities at fairly high yields, so it's not very uncommon to have sites with 60 hectoliters or 70 hectoliters per hectare in yield that produce pretty amazing Riesling. Botrytis is actually a very important factor as well when it comes to winemaking and Riesling. It attacks the skins of the berries, punctures them and sucks out water to concentrate sweetness and acidity. The legend has it that Botrytis winemaking or late harvest wine styles were invented in Schloss Johannisberg in the Rheingau in Germany. In 1775, a messenger from the Bishop of Fulda arrived late with a message to start harvest. The cellar master still harvested the fruit, but the fruit was attacked by botrytis, so it didn't really look very well. But he made wine out of it and realized that it's beautiful and delicious. Obviously, that's just a story. Botrytis was around before that happened, and it's quite likely that someone else made a Spätlese style before Schloss Johannisberg did in 1775. If you see my video on the Mosel, and you should definitely see that video, you already know that Riesling wines used to be the most expensive wines on most wine lists in the world, more expensive than the top wines from Bordeaux or Burgundy. This very clearly is not the case anymore, but the most expensive white wine in the world is again a German Riesling, the 2003 Schwarzwaldberger from Egon Müller. It's a Trockenbeerenauslese and it's sold for 12,000 euros a bottle on auction. There are roughly 64,000 hectares of vineyards in the world planted to Riesling. 24,000 of that, so roughly 40% of the total, are planted in Germany. 80% of all the vineyards in the Rheingau are planted to Riesling, but when it comes to total vineyard area planted to Riesling, the Pfalz is actually number one. So Germany is number one, but who's number two? No one would have guessed it, but it's Romania. Romania has 6,000 hectares of Riesling vineyards, but there are some conflicting numbers there. I'm using the OIV numbers, which tend to be used as the standard numbers in the wine industry. But there are some people who are saying that not all of those 6,000 hectares are actually planted to Riesling, but to grape varieties that are just called Riesling. Number 3 is the USA with 4,600 hectares. Most of those Riesling plantings are in Washington State, and Washington State is really well known for its Rieslings. And the biggest Riesling winery is actually Chateau Saint Michel in Washington State. They have the biggest area of Riesling vineyards under their management. On 4th place, we got France. And if you talk about Riesling in France, it's really just the Alsace that you're talking about. 4,000 hectares of vineyards are planted to Riesling in the Alsace, and they're producing many different styles, but Riesling tends to be more on the dry end when it comes to Alsatian wines. Australia is on the 5th place with 3,100 hectares of Riesling vineyards. The most well-known areas are Clare Valley and Eden Valley. Next, we got Ukraine, China, Austria, Italy, and Moldova. I know my Austrian friends won't like this, but while there are some amazing Austrian Rieslings, when it comes to quantity, Austria doesn't really play a big role. Riesling is known for making wines that really highlight the characteristics of the site. When it comes to Riesling from a cooler climate, you often get flavors of apple, maybe a bit of peach, a bit of flowers. Warmer climates and botrytis wines bring out flavors of apricot, pineapple, and lime. Riesling is also famous for a flavor called petrol. Petrol comes from a substance which is called trimethyldehypronaphthalene, and this develops in the berries when they're exposed to a lot of heat, a lot of sunlight, and water stress. This is why you often get this flavor from regions like Alsace or some parts of Australia where it's a bit hotter. Overall, the freshest and most lively Rieslings come from the cooler regions like the Mosel and the Nahe, for example. Slightly more rich and concentrated wines are from areas like the Rheingau or the Wachau. And the most intense and concentrated Rieslings are from areas like Alsace or some parts of Australia. This is just a rule of thumb though. When it comes to glasses, this is my favorite Riesling glass. It's a very normal tulip style wine glass, but you also have other options. When Riesling lovers sit together over a few bottles of wine, the question that is often raised is, why is Riesling not more successful? Wine legends like Jancis Robinson, for example, labeled Riesling the greatest white grape variety in the world, and I also really love Riesling. But if you look at the stats, there are only 64,000 hectares of vineyards planted to Riesling, while Chardonnay, for example, has 210,000 hectares, and Sauvignon Blanc has 123,000 hectares of vineyards. So there seem to be some reasons why Riesling is not as successful as it is. One issue for sure is the acidity. Riesling always has quite a lot of acidity, quite a lot of freshness, and there are people who don't really like that and have issues with acidic wines. But this acidity also makes Riesling such an age-worthy wine and such a great companion with food. But there's also an issue with quality. Germany didn't really focus on producing great quality for a period in the 20th century, and people still associate poorly made wines with the name Riesling, which is still an issue. Another issue is that people often associate Riesling with sweet wine. That is not true anymore. There are more and more beautiful dry wines being made out of the grape variety Riesling, so don't make that mistake. I also believe that Riesling suffered during a period when oaked wines were really popular. People don't generally use oak when they're making Riesling. There are some exceptions to that rule, but overall, Riesling is unoaked. And during that period when oaky wines were super popular, Riesling just didn't really fit in. But overall, Riesling is able to produce great, very complex, very distinct wines that have lots of freshness, lots of liveliness, can age for a long time, and generally aren't very expensive. So if you like this video, please like it down here or down there. Subscribe to my channel to make sure that you are not missing my next videos. There's some pretty amazing stuff coming up. The next video will be on one of the greatest wines in the world, so stay tuned. But whatever you do, stay thirsty. Goodbye.